All right. Hey, my name's Tom Graham from Dolby. Excited to be here at NAB with Ricardo Martinez.
Hello.
And we're in the League of Filmmakers booth
Yes, we are.
in the Central Hall, NAB 2026. And we're immersed in, thanks to Blackmagic, who are our partner and helping with your film, right?
Yep. Yeah. Blackmagic's been a great sponsor.
Yep. And so we're using some Blackmagic cameras and we're just shooting a little conversation about your new film. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's kind of what we're going to focus on. What's the title of the film?
So I'm Ricardo Martinez, and the name of my film is called The Dropoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a short film, and you've received a pretty cool honor. You're part of the Netflix.
Yeah. So it's the Netflix Filmmaker Fellowship Program in connection with the Latino Film Institute. So it's a mouthful. So I think it's actually the Latino Film Institute and Netflix Filmmaker Fellowship Program.
That's amazing. And how did you get that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, wow. So we call it LFI for short, Latino Film Institute, LFI. And so I was actually invited, which is really crazy to imagine that I got the honor of applying to be invited to apply. And so what had happened was I had made a short film that had, long story on that, but that film was transferred by Blackmagic from 200T Kodak original negative.
Oh, wow.
And I created this, it's one of my favorite films, but it took a long time to get done. So I finished that film and I sent it around to a bunch of people and had it screen. And I also, at the same time, have a Latino horror screenwriters group called the Latin Exorcists, and where we workshop horror screenplays and what have you. And so I met some of the people at the LFI in the program about 3 years ago, and they asked me to apply back then. And every time I applied, I never got in. And I kept sending them horror scripts and all these types of different scripts. And so this was the third time that I got invited to apply. And I sent them my new film that had been transferred. And I gave them finally something that was not straight up horror, that was like more of a thriller grounded kind of story. And and so I kind of submitted on a whim. I almost gave them another horror project, believe it or not. and then at the last minute, I was like, okay, well, I've done, this is like a classic lesson. I've done one thing that hasn't worked twice.
Right.
Why would I do that again?
Right.
And then I sent them the new script. And then it was really bizarre because it's the first time I've ever applied to a very big fellowship program, mentorship program, anything. And I got like an immediate yes. Like I got like an email, like I think it was about like a week later. That was like, we really like your script. We'd like to have an interview. Wow. And I was like, it's like when you get a call like that, you try not to move too much, make too many loud noises, and so and then they called, and then eventually I got through those interviews, and then I got in the program.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the film.
Okay, so The Drop-Off is the story of a little girl who gets dropped off at a pizza arcade for a couple hours while her mom has to go to like a possibly life-changing job interview. And so it's about, really how this little girl has to kind of pretend like she's not alone long enough for her mom to go to a job interview and then come back and get her.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing there's some tension there.
Yeah. It's, obviously I love horror, I love thriller, I love genre. Yeah. But what's so weird is that this is actually a little backstory on this story. So I grew up with a single mom, I wrote this story in a weekend. I didn't know if anybody would like it, but I wanted to write it. And I just kept sending it around, and people just kept like telling me, oh my God, this is great. Like, you got to send this to this person, and you got to make a script. And so it's got a lot of scary elements to it that I would normally ascribe to, but it's actually kind of the most personal story that I've ever written at the same time.
Awesome.
So it's kind of like a really lovely kind of like everything that's happened from it. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, you and I got connected. So part of Dolby's content creation team. So I work specifically on the Dolby Vision side. Obviously, we have Dolby Atmos sound.
Yeah.
And what really attracted me to your story was that you had roots as a colorist.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting for a filmmaker to also be a colorist. Tell us a little bit about that background.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I'm a Dolby certified colorist.
Whoa, right? And
Dolby Vision, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. So my when I got out of film school at NYU Film, there wasn't like the cavalry didn't arrive, you know, to say, you know, like it wasn't like, oh great, you graduated, like all these managers and agents are waiting outside, and you know, like of NYU waiting for you to graduate.
Right.
When I graduated, I had to find a job, and the first job that I thought that was creative, that I could apply myself to on films that worked all the time, was being an editor and a colorist. And so right out of college, I got a job at a post house. I started studying with Tim Bond, you know, a bunch of different Bill Stokes, these classic colorists of DuArt film and video. I loved the color process on the Spirit. We used to use the Spirit telecines back then.
Oh, wow.
That I learned everything about video. So I immersed myself in that kind of process creatively. So I got my first job was cutting promos to launch a network, and when you work in commercials, especially at that time for a network, you did everything. You colored. Yeah. And so
you edit and you color.
I edited, colored, and then there'd be a graphic, and you have to figure out how to fix it. And we all short turn around, Swiss Army knife. And so you know, in that process, I started coloring. So I colored commercials. Then I bumped up to a show for Showtime, and once I did a colored a show for broadcast on Showtime. I was really young, actually. Like I was like 22, 23. My career kind of took off as a colorist, and I just kind of jumped back and forth, and you know, did stuff for cable, and I just kept going. So I always had this career as a colorist, and as a filmmaker. At the same time, I was still a filmmaker. I was still wanting to make stuff, and so anytime I shot anything, especially with the more experience that I got as a colorist, I would just start coloring my shorts as well, you know, obviously. And so, it kind of was a natural evolution for me as a filmmaker to always color. Sometimes I'd edit, you know, sometimes I'd fix graphics. And so now I've gotten to the point now where when I shoot, I'm always thinking about what I'm going to color and fix. You know, as somebody who's had to sit with clients and hear producers tell me all the time, oh, we messed up back there. Can you cover that light? Right. You know, can you darken this area? This is not in focus. Can you try to sharpen it? Right. All of these little tricks that we use, I'm thinking about when I'm shooting. Right. And that actually really helps me. Right. Get it done cheaply. Right. Get it done quickly. And so that's where a lot of my color also, like I've been saved quite a few times, but I've saved myself a few times, you know, like fixing footage, coloring footage. Yeah. So. And as we've talked about your movie and you've shown me some things, what's interesting to me is that you applied all of your color skill, and you're now, as you said, a Dolby Vision certified colorist. So that means you're comfortable grading in HDR in the Dolby Vision process, and you're shooting this movie focused in an arcade. Yeah. Which has lots of neon and blinking lights. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so how does that, why, as an independent filmmaker, in your background as a colorist, why should Dolby Vision matter to filmmakers? Why should it be another sort of palette changing toolbox? Yeah, I think like, you know, every artist wants to use the best tools, but also just a variety of tools. You know, I think every artist wants to take, and I don't mean to call myself an artist, but if I can use that word, I think we all want to shoot and make stuff that affects people, and we want to use every tool at our disposal. And so in Dolby Vision, here was an opportunity that I knew about where I could shoot with an incredible range and palette. Because that was the thing about Dolby Vision that I learned when I was, you know, when I was trained for my job, was that, you know, resolution and all these things will give you, yes, more pixels, but the thing that we'll respond to, that will actually feel like most often, is this range of color. You know, like it was this really bizarre kind of like that kind of clicked with me as like a person, you know, like as I'm a little bit of a science, I love science a little bit too. So like, eyeballs, this is what colorists are. Most of us are like into science and light and all these things. And
You're nerdy.
We're nerdy. I'm a nerd guy to the core. Yeah, I'm always like, talking about why does color work? Why does the camera work? You have to think about these things when you make it anyway. So, so my idea, like, I'm going to shoot, I've color corrected stuff shot in arcades. I've color corrected stuff that was shot in arcades with an SD, HD,
right.
4K, RAW,
right.
Like I've seen it all,
Yeah.
And, I've had many a discussion with a producer that was like, oh man, those whites are so clipped, or that, especially that red thing, that red gamut, when you start coloring with, you start shooting neon lights and all this stuff.
In SDR, it just can't handle it.
It just can't. I mean, it's so silly, but, to say that sounds like such a snob, but like literally you can see the difference, yeah, and so having colored and mastered in HDR and just seeing that range of bright to dark, I mean, we're talking about depth, like as a cinematographer, like when I'm shooting something, I want depth. As a colorist, I'm always trying to create depth. And with like depth, sometimes I'm creating it with like, fake blur effects,
or windows. You're creating contrast that way.
Everything. We use use it all. Throw it on there. Yeah.
So is it true then that if you were to so you shot on the Blackmagic
12K Cine.
Okay, so if
two of them, we actually had a 6K and a 12K.
Awesome.
Full frame.
So if you're taking that raw image and you lay it into, say, a PQ HDR timeline,
yes,
does that pocket for you in a way that's you start to see what you saw on set, the contrast and the detail, compared to SDR? It's
the first time that you actually feel like you're getting everything that you saw. Like honestly, I have down converted HD footage of my show. That's how you edit.
Right.
And so like, you work with that for like most 6 weeks, and then you suddenly switch over to HDR.
So is that an SDR LUT then you have on? Yeah.
Yeah, we have an SDR LUT. We're working in a HD down converts. Usually it's like a ProRes 422 LT.
Yeah.
Something like to that degree. And you can transcode and you can see kind of what you're talking about, but the moment that you actually switch back to HDR into a PQ format, whichever flavor you're going to go, because PQ can be, depending on which level you want to be to. If we want to get really granular, I think that's when you start to finally start to see what your footage looked like and what you saw there. Right. That's when you can kind of really tell. My short is about a little girl hiding in an arcade.
Right.
As the colorist said, Corey McMahon at Geiger, shout out to Geiger Post. When I started talking to him about this, he said, dude, we got to do it in HDR. And I was like, yeah, of course we do. And he was like, and he was like, yeah, he's like, dude, I heard neon. I heard neon dark arcade. And the only thing I could think about was HDR. And I was like, yes, exactly.
She's hiding in the shadows.
Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No,
she's hiding in the shadows.
It makes sense. It's sort of purpose built for your story.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah, like, did you guys know that I was going to do it? No, that's my cheesy joke of the day. But I think I've watched a lot of stuff on Netflix. I've delivered to Netflix. I worked on a game show previously, actually. Shiny floor, giant flashing lights everywhere.
Yeah.
We call it Shiny Floor Game Show. It's a nickname that some of the colorists have for it. With all due respect, and flashing lights, skin tones, neons, and all this. Think of I didn't work on this show, but like The Weakest Link. When you use the lights, no, the lights go down.
Yeah.
And I've worked on that stuff in HDR, and I know when you watch it on that monitor in HDR. Just the effects,
the impact,
it's like, whoa, it's instant. So I want to give that whoa feeling to people that are watching my short, and I have, all these kinds of lighting, effects and stuff. And I that's why I was thinking about it right away.
And so working with Geiger and working in Resolve.
Yes.
And Resolve. Using so once you've got your HDR hero grade, you then move to the Dolby Vision analysis and trims.
Yep.
And are you comfortable getting your SDR derived from that, or do you have a separate pass?
Yeah, I do we're not quite done, but we've done a couple of sections of it that we've done to screen today. But the the SDR trim pass, comes out, the auto pass comes out really great. I have to be honest, in my experience as an HDR colorist, and actually even on this show, the trim pass gets faster and faster. I mean, it's kind of silly to say. I don't want to sound like we're not working,
No,
but
please.
like, man, that auto trim does like 80% of it. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
you can get granular with some stuff. Some things it might freak out. It's very rare.
Right.
It's very
But
rare.
The automatic analysis, you look at it with Dolby Vision mapping to 100 nits,
Yeah.
and you're like, that looks good.
It looks pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Like most of the time, the client could look at an auto trim and be like, cool. Like, the SDR, and like, that's good to go. There's going to be like really busy shots and pans and things like that where it might not understand. Usually it's a shot that will start with something like pointing at a light.
Yes.
And then ending at like a darker spot.
Yes.
Where the trim just needs a little bit, direction,
Sure.
But, it's like, it always, I hate to say this like in this way, but it's always felt like, man, wait, this is the job? Like, like this is so easy, like, comparatively to
Don't tell anybody.
taking it from a regular grade to do that same effect, it's almost more work than doing the auto trim and then the SDR pass and trim pass.
So
yeah.
do you feel, I guess, if we're zooming out from the independent filmmaker point of view, you have a bunch of your other colleagues who, like you, were accepted and stuff. And so they're probably focused on SDR versions of their show. What would you say to independent filmmakers about why you should consider grading HDR first and using Dolby Vision to create an SDR and a mapped experience too? Because your show will end up on Netflix in Dolby Vision, right?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, so there's a lot of myths, I think, unfortunately, out there about HDR. There's a lot of if you work in post, you know this stuff, but if you don't, you kind of have, especially as a filmmaker who doesn't, or somebody who hasn't worked a lot in HDR, and a lot of people, this is a new technology for a lot of people. So when anything new on a film and a shoot is usually kind of scary. But I think that the reward is worth the risk, and there's not much risk really to it as well. And that the one thing I would tell a filmmaker is you're already looking at HDR a lot. You just don't maybe recognize that your iPhone is a really great HDR display. Your iPad, especially, the recent iPads, really great HDR display. And actually what we learned in Dolby Vision training, shout out to AB Matthews, was that, the LGs and the Samsungs are, have this incredible range that are way above 100 nit in general, and they just keep pushing it anyway. So that was the revelation too, was how many consumer cameras are already taking your SDR and stretching it out to HDR.
Consumer TVs.
TVs are already doing this. So I guess that's what I would say to an indie filmmaker is, number one, you're already watching HDR probably more than you know, and probably the things that looked really great were the ones that were in HDR. Right. And so if you have this chance to do it. Start from HDR, and
so don't be scared. That's number one.
Yeah, and then that the SDR down convert always looks better. Yeah, like by far, like it was so obvious when I did an SDR down convert how much better it looked than actually just working in SDR first.
Can we dig into that for a second?
Sure.
So when you think about it, right, you're using that camera probably has like 17 stops of dynamic range.
Yes.
And if you go straight to SDR to grade, you're dumbing that down to about 6.5 stops. And then you have to make decisions about in windows and all these other things. But when you go in HDR, and granted, you have to have an HDR monitor to grade in, but you're now seeing closer to those 16, 17 stops of dynamic range without compressing and choosing which part of it you want to. Yeah. So automatically, you're letting the color science do the work, and then when you map down to SDR, it's helping you make that leap. Yeah. You don't have to do it manually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, the blacks retain so much more information. The whites, the highlights of, have so much fall off in them, we used to talk about clipped whites all the time in color. I think there's my camera is pointed in my short at so many light sources all the time. Yeah. And instead of just getting these like hard cut shapes, I have this there's like a depth to them and like a range. And when you do this HDR to SDR down convert, you just see like you said, like this range. I mean, it's this why there's a range in the word,
Right.
like, and then the name.
Right.
And it's just, I think any filmmaker understands the idea of downscaling, like
Sure.
shooting in a bigger format.
Yeah.
And then almost always looks better.
Okay, so number one, don't be scared. Number two, by doing the HDR and sort of painting your picture there, let the Dolby Vision help you map down.
Yeah.
It's going to give you a good looking SDR.
Absolutely.
Okay. Number three, is there number three?
Well, that your HDR is actually going to transfer to a lot of other formats that you're not yet aware of. And like, for me, my phone.
Right.
Everything's on a phone nowadays. I mean, literally before we got here, I'm texting you and sending you. I'm communicating with my filmmaker. We are looking at our films on phones.
Yeah.
80% of the time, and then we get to the theater, thank God, and we get to, because I prefer watching in the theater.
Yeah.
And then we get to see it in all its glory. But nowadays, with the phones that we have, you can actually get a really amazing range. They are HDR displays. So that's the thing, is that most of us as indie filmmakers will be sending this to somebody else's phone. And when you do it in HDR, it looks so much better on your phone.
Well, and a lot of Hollywood folks are watching dailies or something on iPad Pros or color reviews.
Yep.
Right? People are remote now. People are not always in the color bay.
A Mac laptop.
Yeah.
I mean, I was blown away when not to see it, shout out just Apple, if you want to sponsor me though, Apple, call me. Most laptops nowadays have an incredible HDR display on them.
Yeah.
Even when I'm making my graphics or opening them up on my MacBook M1, I'm like watching HDR.
Yeah.
And that detail is there.
It's Dolby Vision too. They accept Dolby Vision for Apple TV, iPhone, iPad, MacBook Pro. So yeah, it's an ecosystem that works, right, for filmmakers and creatives.
It's an ecosystem that works. It's also an ecosystem that's way more prevalent than I think most indie or starting or emerging filmmakers actually even realize.
Right.
They just hear HDR and they go, but it's everywhere. And that's the jump from the big stuff to the big films to the small films.
And so as a follow-up to what you were saying, if you get the Resolve Studio version, which is $299, I think?
Yes, $299, but it also comes with the camera. Every time you buy a camera, you get a license.
Oh, okay. I got it. So if you buy the camera, you get a studio version for free.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that. Commercial's free, Blackmagic. No, sorry.
So the other interesting piece of that is that comes with the Dolby Vision analysis built in for free.
Yeah.
So to your point, if you don't even need to do the trims, if you just analyze your shots, it will give you the mapping to SDR and you can even create a Dolby Vision encode, I believe.
Whoa.
You might need the trims license for that.
I think you need the trims license. Yeah,
you might need a trims license for that. But at least you can create the metadata.
Yeah.
Right? And there's plenty of places you can encode your content online as well.
Well, it does handle the tone mapping automatically.
It does.
And I think Premiere does too also.
Not yet.
There's some
Adobe, call me.
There's some tab in there that, like, when I was exporting the other day, where it says like enable tone mapping, but I don't know if it hits it as.
It's probably not Dolby Vision.
Yeah, it might be something.
The
other guys. You can get up and running in Resolve with the current, like with a regular studio version, and get really very good.
You can handle the HDR color science pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
That part isn't too tricky.
No.
You can. Although you didn't edit in HDR, you could potentially, right?
Yeah. We should more often, but sometimes, like I said, this is emerging. This is still a new, but I think very soon that's going to change.
I think so. I think the cost of HDR monitors are coming down in price. And for editorial, arguably you could use a calibrated LG or Panasonic or Sony consumer panel, a high-end consumer panel, to edit on.
Yeah.
I don't know that you'd finish grading on it, but
not for nothing, you could probably master an HDR using just checking out reviews on an iPad Pro. Like, I don't know if you'd recommend it, but I know our producers often would give notes just on their iPads, of the HDR version. Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know. Is that not supposed to happen that way?
So you inspire me, and I mean that because I feel like a lot of people think Dolby Vision HDR is for Marvel movies only, but really, as a storyteller,
Yeah.
because you had the immersion and experience and understood the power of more contrast, more detail, better color
Yeah.
over just more pixels, you're
Yeah.
like, I want my story told that way.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, more pixels is not always better. Anybody that has shot with like, certain brands will know that. I think as a filmmaker, I want to use every single tool I can to give you a feeling, and then the color is, man, that's huge, right? Like that's massive. So that's why I was thinking about that and so.
And as a follow-up, you and I are going to take your 1000-nit HDR Home Master and your friend from Geiger. You're going to come to our Dolby Cinema room in Burbank, and we're going to take that 1000-nit. We're going to apply the same Dolby Vision mapping, but we're going to do a Dolby Cinema version. So you can go 108-nit PQ Dolby Cinema or 48-nit standard DCI Cinema. So we're gonna show you that, taking that mapping process that you already know and love for SDR Home, and how we can apply it to cinema versions as well.
Dude, this sounds so good. I'm sorry. I'm like so stoked. Like, I'm like, yeah, I love that. I can't wait. I'm like, I'm sure it's going to look so good.
Yeah.
I may cry a little bit, but that's okay. But this is like when I see color on the screen like that, and you haven't seen when you see the short and you see all the different parts of it, it's like a character. Like the color is like a part of the story,
Right.
Like, I mean, it's a little girl running around, trying to like have a good time, but then not. And like, it's like color is like, it's like, not to quote Victoria Storaro, but there's a color for every emotion and time,
Right.
I think my God, I'm sound so pretentious doing that. but yeah, I mean, every filmmaker, color should be an aspect of telling the story and cinematography. And my shout out to my cinematographer, Natalia Moscoso, who absolutely killed it. The B camera operators, all those people, they really thought about this stuff. The cinematographers that we work with we're in a new era. This is not the 1990s or 2000s anymore, where we can kind of push things off. Everybody is looking on set at what they were shooting.
Yeah.
And we're considering a half a stop in that direction, half a stop in that direction. So, we're all thinking about all these tools.
Yeah, and I think sort of the next front. So the first 10 years of Dolby Vision has been great, but I think as we go in sort of the next 10 years with, independent filmmakers and growing and getting cinematographers more comfortable on set looking at HDR for their exposures as well, because you really get that shadow detail.
Oh man,
you can make more informed lighting decisions by having that info on set as well. So I think that's an area we need to grow in. And again, as monitors come down in price, you're going to see more of that, I think.
Oh, I would love to. I mean, I would love to be watching, especially when you're shooting exteriors in the sun, and you're like tenting off everything. I'd rather be watching it in HDR, especially if I know I'm going to master in HDR. I mean, you want to watch as often as you can, especially even on set. Like, you want to watch as often as you can what the final thing is going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all like, that's all part of it, man. Yeah. And we're at the stage now with lighting that like my cinematographer has a headset and she's talking to her gaffer and she's saying, take the red down 5%. I mean, that's where we're at.
Right.
And so we really don't have another option to kind of have that kind of, to be able to make those kinds of creative decisions, or like tweaking, of these issues aside from HDR, and when you start working in SDR and lower formats, you're not going to notice that 5% down from that red, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm describing it correctly. Yeah. But I mean, if my cinematographer is taking it that seriously and I'm taking that seriously and Gaffer's taking that seriously, we want to keep being able to adjust it in that nuance.
I heard someone that I respect in the ecosystem say that if you can solve some of those issues with that level of detail on set in maybe 10 minutes or whatever, flagging off a certain element or a highlight that is too hot or something of that nature, if you can solve it there, you will save days down the road.
Well, right. So shout out to another shout. We can do so many shouts. So I knew in college, and I still occasionally talk to Ben Cutchins. Is an amazing cinematographer, director of photography of The White Lotus season 1 and 2. Ozark, people sleep on Ozark, was set like the look for a zillion shows after that.
Sure.
And one of the things I learned from one of his interviews was that when he's on set, he's actually like, he wants all the whites and highlights. You just generally, it can't be over 90%, like it can't be blown out, of IRE. Like it's got to be basically less than the 90% of the full gamut of range and any the brightest white.
Yeah.
So when he's shooting in the sun, he looks at that monitor, that scope, and he's like, okay, if that is, I need to get that through ND, applying NDs and blocks and filters all the way to below 90% of the range. And then I can start lighting everything else from that.
Right.
Because he knows that when he's shooting something and it's clipped, if it's above that 90%, you're already in trouble when you get to the color grade. You can't save as much.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of unlike.
Yeah, and I think too, one piece of advice I'd have for an indie filmmaker is to shoot in a RAW format or a high bit depth log format. You don't want to clip highlights in the camera or crush blacks in the camera.
Yeah.
You want a safe exposure. And I think what happens if you look at clipping in HDR is it's harsh, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in your scenario, you talked about soft highlights where you plan to roll off at a certain, I'm sure you designed that with a show LUT ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, we actually, it's funny. We used Gen 5 extended. We did a show LUT, created a show LUT, and then we also just used Gen 5 to extend a video as like as kind of a basis because it was so easy and generic that everybody could have it right away. And it did a great job.
Tell me about Gen 5. I'm not familiar with
Gen 5 video. It's the Blackmagic standard. So now they're unveiled Gen 6.
Okay.
So it's a standard Blackmagic Gen 5 to extended video. They have I think they also have Gen 5 to extended film as well, to film as well.
So it's a format.
It's a lot. It's just it's just a format that it comes with every Blackmagic camera.
Got it. Excellent.
Yeah, but they just upgraded to Gen 6 color science. So and that one is even better. Like I think, yeah. It's just a LUT to apply. It's like a standard LUT that a lot of people have. It's kind of like having not to name another brand, but like a Sony log, the S-Log2 LUT,
Right.
Yeah. But we also, so we take that basis. So when we go into color to make dailies, we take that Gen 5, which is a standard, and then we add a couple tweaks to it.
Sure.
And we make our show LUT from that basis. Yeah.
So it's your starting point.
For what we're shooting on set. Yeah.
Well,
So,
Ricardo, I am so pleased to have met you, and and I'm excited to help you as we do some Dolby Vision exploration. We do a Dolby Cinema sort of premiere for you,
dude.
And I look forward to watching all your shows on Netflix.
Oh man,
Yeah,
no, dude, me too. This is so dope. No, this is so good. Thank you so much for having me and this opportunity. And I just like we were talking about this before. I just like making things, man. Yeah.
And that's the cool thing is you've got and at this day and age, you've got the coolest tools and format to tell your story. And you told me earlier you've worked in film, right? And so that was when it was really hard, man. Right?
Yeah.
It was so hard.
Yeah. Working in film, how many takes you got? Like,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, what do you say? They have this magical, immortal, beautiful feeling about film, but it was hard, man. It was you didn't always know what you were getting, and
you never knew what you were getting.
And you were hopeful.
Yeah,
you were hopeful. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the video tap. I mean, you ever look through an SD video tap? I mean, it's like, oh god, let's not let it make that look that bad. But then, so then you had the dailies, a light leak, check the gate, you get your stuff transferred, it comes back a little scratched, all that stuff, man. You got to.
But it's so much easier now, right? I mean, and the Blackmagic cameras, the as we talked about, Resolve cost, it's very affordable.
It's a lot more affordable, definitely. I do love that dynamic range of film when I can do it.
Sure.
But you know what? It just became, especially when we had two cameras, it was just impossible. Like to shoot on 16 millimeter two cameras syncing. There's a reason why Ryan Coogler couldn't shoot 16 for Sinners. He's talked about this. It's because it has gate weave.
Yeah.
So you're basically locked in a Super 16, and then at that point you might as well be shooting S35. So it's like and that's like $100,000 right there. It's like you're never gonna do it. And you can't just roll. We had little kids. I had a kid in my film. I can't. I shot hours, because one of those, everything is magic, but with film, it's like we would have just burned through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
No, I go on and on. I get
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much too. I'm very excited for. Thank you for the opportunity, Dolby, everybody, and Blackmagic.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.